Hi, everyone. My name is Cici Northup. I'm an associate partner at Glenbrook Partners. We're a payment strategy and consulting firm, and we believe in inclusive economies, much like the folks in this room. We have spent the last decade working with many of you to design and implement inclusive instant payment systems. And one of the things that we've done in the past that I'm excited to share with you today that really builds on one of the priority pillars that Steve mentioned this morning is a nearly plug and play scheme rule set. And this really aligns with the priority of making adoption easier. The Mojaloop Foundation is working to build a lot of open source software to enable that. And in coordination and closely linked, if we could just go to the next slide, you'll see that the business rules and business design really are closely linked with technology design. You can't move forward one without the other. If you do, you sort of risk losing and permeating inclusivity into your design. We also acknowledge, I'll just take a moment to pause and reflect on this diagram. This diagram, what I wanted to emphasize is the linking of the business design and technology design, but this also acknowledges that both of these sit within the context of a regulatory environment that needs to be respected. And it sits within the context of an ecosystem that has certain enabling characteristics that also need to be acknowledged. So in this scheme rule set that we've developed for you, that will be a tool available to the community in the next 2 weeks, is a rule set that's nearly plug and play that aims to acknowledge the interlinking of the technical design as well as the ecosystem which it sits within. So if we could go to next slide, 2 more forward, please. What did we do and what are we working on? So business decisions are often codified in scheme rule sets and participant agreements. And we have developed a plug and play rule set that does these things. It provides the rule set of how the technology is used by the participants, by the entities in the ecosystem to facilitate transfers. It recognizes and provides a draft agreement for you to use with your ecosystem players that acknowledges their responsibilities and obligations, as well as your responsibilities and obligations as a hub provider. And so what does this look like? Next slide. It looks like a very lengthy Word document, probably more lengthy than you'd like to see, that has that includes the sections that are described in this table of contents. It has a robust glossary that allows you to have a starting point for the types of entities, messages, roles, tools that will be enabled by a Mojaloop scheme. It provides participant obligations and roles. It provides detail and description around the services that are available in a Mojaloop scheme, as well as aspects of those services, like the details behind addressing, settlement, clearing, etc. One thing that's important to point out about this rule set is that it's really aligned to a Mojaloop proof of concept. So it reflects the decisions that have been, that will be used in any Mojaloop proof of concept. I'll explain, or I'll illustrate that in just a moment. It also allows the expansion and maturity of the rule set beyond that proof of concept. So much like moving from a technology proof of concept to a phased in implementation to a go live, the same thing is true for the business documents that are paired with that technology. So this document is a starting point, a plug and play rule set to pair with a proof of concept, and then it can be matured alongside the maturity of your technology, and we provide guidance on how to do that. So let's just take an example. We provide, this is just a screenshot of the intro text. It shows sort of how we describe the content. Oh, yeah, thank you. How do we describe the scheme? Oh, can you go back one? Thanks. How we describe the scheme context, the definitions, the scope of the scheme rules. You'll notice on the left, I showcase the legend. There is a legend in this document when it's made available to the community. Anything in black, which is the majority of the document, is plug and play text that reflects sort of inclusive design decisions that align with the proof of concept design decisions as reflected in a Mojaloop proof of concept. Anything in red, which is very minimal, are things that you need as a team to customize to your country, to your context. And then, as I mentioned, we provide guidance on how to mature the text as you mature your system, and that's provided in blue. So if we take a look at how this document comes to life through the lens of participation, the next slide, what we do is we describe the entity types, right? What are the roles within a Mojaloop scheme within an inclusive instant payment system? These are the seven very necessary roles. They're not constrained. These roles can be expanded on. We define these for you. And then we describe the obligations of those roles and how they interact with the system. So let me just zoom in on participation. This is a really important one. Who gets to connect directly into the system to clear and settle? In a Mojaloop proof of concept, if I'm understanding this correctly, and this is a document for the community to weigh in on, a Mojaloop proof of concept tests two types of participation: direct participation and indirect participation. So direct participation is an entity that holds end user accounts and can connect directly into the system to clear and settle transactions. They have a settlement account at the settlement bank. The responsibilities of a direct participant are clearly articulated in this rule set. We also have the role of an indirect participant within a Mojaloop proof of concept system. And so we equally describe the roles and responsibilities of an indirect participant. And just to explain what an indirect participant is, much like a direct participant, those entities connect to the system to clear and settle transactions. However, they have a sponsor for settlement. So they have an entity, a direct participant who is their sponsor for settlement, having that account at the settlement bank. Next slide. So I didn't put this up here to be read, but I put it up here to be illustrative. This is an example of how we illustrate, or excuse me, how we bring to life the responsibilities of those entities. As you can see, there are responsibilities that any participant, whether you're direct or indirect, are obligated to. We capture those. We also capture the unique responsibilities of direct and indirect participants. All of that is captured in this rule set. We also acknowledge that there may be different responsibilities for entities that are playing the role of a sending institution and entities when they're playing the role of a receiving institution. All of that is captured in this document and available for you to use and build on. So what are our, we'll skip this. What are our next steps? If we could go one step forward. So we are in the process of finalizing this rule set. And by finalizing this rule set, I really mean making it available to the community. It is always, we always have the opportunity and quite frankly, the responsibility to mature it and improve it as we do with anything that's intended for inclusivity. So that is an opportunity that we have as a community. The rule set is also available for plug and play for any institution or implementation team that's moving forward with a proof of concept. As I mentioned, the rule set captures design decisions that are reflected in a Mojaloop proof of concept. I would also add that the rule set's available to any other team for use as you mature your system, regardless of sort of what approach you have taken. This is a tool for the community and a tool for the community to extend and evolve. So I'm really excited to sort of bring this to you, and I welcome your feedback as we mature this forward. Any questions before? I know I'm holding us from lunch, so any final questions? Yeah.
Engineers know how open source works to contribute. Have you ever seen something where payment specialists who build scheme rules like you guys do contribute and collaborate in an open source manner? And do you think that's going to be easy for you to do?
Have I seen it? And I do I think it's easy to use. So, you know, the inspiration of this document was twofold. One is that, again, I sort of mentioned this close linking of business decisions and technology decisions. The Mojaloop Foundation realized that this would be a valuable tool to facilitate ease of use and quick adoption. I would also say that this was born out of an existing document that's available to the community right now. It's a scheme rules template that I think was developed at the very early stages of when Mojaloop, the Mojaloop Foundation first went live, I think 2017, so something like that. I would say I don't know the extent to which this scheme rules template has been widely used by the community. So I do think we have the opportunity to sort of make this tool more known, more widely used, and mature it along the way. I was making note desire that we should touch base. I think it's something to make the teams involved in the accelerator program aware of, so that they recognize this is something that they can bring to the table. And so I think there's opportunities for us to make sure that this is valuable. Yeah.
Thank you. When we first started looking at the Tanzania implementation, one of the documents that we thought we would probably need is a document that would explain to participants and also to some extent the technical implementers of schemes what the scheme rule implications were for how they would have to behave. So effectively we would say, since the scheme rule says X, this means you must do Y when you receive this message, that kind of thing. And my worry is that we would be making life more difficult, I mean, going back to the discussion we had earlier, making life more difficult for the implementers of schemes and indeed for their participants if we weren't explicit and clear about what the technical implications of those rules were for them.
So I think you're suggesting that there's an opportunity here to also explain the implications of these rules on any financial institution or other entity, I might add, that is connecting into a scheme to say this is what this obligation means for you. I agree. I think that would be a lovely companion piece. I also want to acknowledge, I think another interesting opportunity for expansion for the community, if I'm not speaking out of turn, is to create an operating guideline, right? Often what's paired with a scheme rule set is an operating guideline that does some of that translation. If the rule says X, what does that mean in your obligation of returning a message? How quickly do you need to do that? How does that vary by message type? I think we can extend the value of this rule set by perhaps creating a document that allows that translation to be very, very clear.